hosting until
Surprise.
Hi. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers and their journey to publication. My name is Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write in multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction under the pen name Dee Dee Bowman.
And we are short one host today. Jennifer Carl Tong, who writes historical Christian romance, is having all kinds of not traumatic or bad stuff. She just needed to not be on the podcast today. So hi to Jen if she's able to listen as she's doing all of her busy making stuff. We would like to thank you for tuning in, all of you listening or watching live, and a big thank you for everybody who listens on iTunes or any of the other platforms where we make the audio available after the fact. YouTubers, if you like what we are doing, please like and subscribe. You can go to our website and put your name on our newsletter list. You will never miss a single episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast if you do so. We start every episode with a segment we call What's Up. We check in with each host about what's going on with their personal or professional lives. And Rhonda, what is up with you this week?
Well, let's see. I've been working on deck making all week, and we may hear a little bit about that in our sprint today.
Like real life overflowed through your fingers and tippity tapped.
A little, yes.
Yes. So what Rhonda's talking, yes, we each wrote a piece of fiction just before the podcast. So we're going to share those at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you were saying it maybe have bled over.
Yes. So I've been working on my deck all week, and now I will be able to see it completed today, and I'm so excited.
That's so awesome. I've been drilling on the deck boards.
Yep.
Are you guys hammering or drilling, or how does that even work now?
Well, it's screws with an impact wrench. So I used a sound effect in my sprint this morning. So we'll see how that worked out.
I can't wait for you to read that sound effect out loud.
Yeah.
Did you have someone design the deck, or like how does that even go? Was it like a kit or what?
The deck was okay. So it was already in place. It was an existing deck, but the boards were 25 years old probably, so they were pretty well rotted. So we replaced all the decking, and then we added a 16 by 12 section to it.
Wow, that's amazing. And so this was, again, in your home that you bought that used to be a gas station that has a historical marker right on the property.
Yes, an actual monument on my own property.
That's very cool. That's
what dreams are made of.
I know, especially for you, how you write the cozies and all of that. Mm-hmm. That old gas station probably has a lot of stories to tell. I bet it's inspirational just to spend time there.
I think so. I just forgot the biggest thing that I was going to tell for my What's Up.
What?
Okay, so when we were taking the deck boards off, there is an old brick cistern covered.
That is like full of possibilities.
It is full of possibilities because now we've had to design trap doors so that I can get under there and start digging it out. So
wow.
For those of us who are ignorant, tell us what a cistern is.
Well, a cistern is a girl and a brother is a boy.
In some areas of the country. No, a cistern is just something that will hold water or hold liquid. So this could have been the well for the old hotel that was there before the gas station was.
Wow.
Or it could be changed from a well into, or not a well, but a water holding cavern, and replaced by putting an outhouse over it when the gas station was there. So
Are you sure you want to go digging?
Suddenly, this isn't sounding as attractive as it used to.
How do you know?
Well, the thing is, outhouses are rich for local archaeologists because it used to be a dump. Like if someone broke a plate, they'd say, well, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll just throw it down the hole.
Wow.
Or, if they were wearing jewelry, it could have fallen off into it. Or, but anyway, after, let's see. So the gas station closed up in 1950. So that's when the outhouse was closed up as well. So it's had 70 years to compost and all that. So it's just
Boy, you'll
regular
find
dirt now.
lots of earthworms in there, I'm sure.
I'm
for your
hoping
fishing
because
expeditions.
yeah.
That's amazing. In the chat, Jason, good to see ya. A long time no see. Piper says, good morning. Alex is with us today. Also, good morning to you. Piper says she helped when they redid her deck, but she used nails. She learned a lot. And then she says, that's what she was wondering about the cistern. She says in New England, they call it a honey hole,
Yep.
LOL.
Yeah.
And they used to toss
Yeah.
everything in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Alex loves calling it a honey hole. I think that is much better than calling it like, I don't know, a poop chute or something like that. They do say it's the honey wagon when they come to clean out your RV at the campground, don't they, Tina?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And it does attract flies, just like honey. So there.
Piper, just to make you feel better, I do wear my gardening gloves. I swear.
I'm sure. And I'm sure you wear your little protective gear and everything, archaeologist that you are. I'm excited. I'm excited that you're going to have some time to be doing digging like that, Rhonda. I know that's right up your alley.
I might have some hip waders that I might be able to.
Oh, thank you.
Donate.
It could be that deep too. I'm so excited. I'm hoping to find arrowheads.
Yeah, at a minimum. Awesome. Well, keep us posted on what you find. I'll do my what's up next. I just would like to take everybody to church a little bit because I have been like really going through it on a personal level. You know, I missed the first podcast ever a couple of weeks ago, and it's not anything I really want to delve into online. But when I was in the pit of despair, I guess you would say, I was kind of saying, where is God? And it dawned on me that God is literally being brought to me in physical form by the awesome community of believers who have been walking beside me through this difficult time. They've held my hand. They've nursed me when I was feeling ill. They've listened to me talk on the phone for just hours. I have had such a blessing of Christian community and outpouring of love and support. Rhonda, you've been that. Tina's been that for me. This podcast in general has been a great anchor. And I just want to say that Jesus Christ does show up for you in the form of your good Christian community when the chips are down. And so take a moment to thank God, everybody. I encourage you for the people in your life who will be there for you when you need them. And that's my what's up.
Well, we are glad to be there for you, Jamie, because you are a lovely, lovely girl and wonderful friend. So.
Well, thanks.
Ditto.
Awesome. Bambino, what is up with you this week?
Well, I took the week off of writing. I didn't take the week off of everything. I just took the week off of writing. Because there's been a couple things going on with my regular paying job, and so I've had to do some major arranging and rearranging and of my schedule to make it work. And so I just wanted to, it's really hard to make changes when you do too much at once. So my idea was I'm going to make the changes to my work schedule this week. And if I feel like it, I might even do it again next week. It just depends on how it feels when I get up Monday morning. Because I want that to be in place. That's a priority, really. Like I have like this list of things that are all priorities, but then they each have their own like spot in the list of what's number 1, 2, 3. So like my spiritual health, number 1, church stuff, number 2, my paying job is number 3. And then the writing comes after that. So, I'm trying to get this work stuff into its groove. And then I can try to figure out where I'm going to put the writing in.
Well, I really appreciate you being vulnerable with your struggles, Tina, because when you get into writers' circles, especially virtual ones, people kind of want to say, you should work your full-time job and then spend the next 5 hours writing. And then you're like, who does the laundry at your house? You know what I mean? And you have to know your own priorities for your writing, and you have to know where that fits in the hierarchy of your own personal needs and lifestyle, correct?
Yeah, and I might be like a deep thinker kind of naturally, but the teaching the Bible study, my job takes a lot of mental power. It's the tasks that I do are either they are either on one extreme or the other. They're either totally brainless and boring, or you have to think really hard. Like there doesn't seem to be any in between. And then my writing also takes up brain power. So my brain was just feeling like, okay, I need to do this a little bit at a time so that I can not burn myself out.
Well, it's wisdom there, because you really do not want burnout. We don't want burnout, Tina, because I think people are waiting for that second book.
They are.
Yeah, they're going to be clamoring for it with the pitchforks before too long. So I don't know how long you want to kick the can down the road, but we're here for you. Piper says what's up. She's working on the blurb for her book that she's planning to have out next week. Whoop, whoop. And she's also expecting the exterminator to help deal with a swarm of carpenter ants. Everybody, does anybody, what?
Little hint for you. They do not survive the vacuum.
I was going to say, send them to Rhonda's house to help with the deck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, what did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on the ants? Dead ant. Dead ant. Dead ant.
Oh, my gosh. This show's really going downhill fast.
That's what happens when Jennifer isn't here. Yeah.
She's
our mom, keeping us under control.
She's never allowed to miss again.
Check out Jason's What's Up. He lost track of time last week. He was writing. He thought he'd just write for half an hour before our podcast. Next thing he knew, it was 12. He wrote 18,000 words last week.
Wow.
Well, I'm glad that you thought, writing podcast, I should write. And then you wrote, because that's why we're here. So yay for you. Jason also says he wrote out many character backstories this week to weave into the story, and he's so excited about the way the book is going. Someday, I'm going to have Jason type up what is going on and why he's writing these stories. It's really kind of amazing, you guys, but we won't talk about that now. Alex says, way to do some self-care, Tina. I've been struggling with that kind of thing too, she says. I have a lot of stuff with work starting up in the fall, and I'm feeling torn. Good to know I'm not alone. I
definitely not alone.
We're here to support and encourage you, whatever direction you guys have to take with your writing career, even if it's a season of rest, even if it's a season of I'm shelving the writing, because not everybody is a machine. Right? Okay, so I think if that's all the what's ups, we don't have Jen to get to. So we're going to delve into our topic today, which is envy. Writer's life, envy. Okay. We decided to approach this topic because we were going through love is patient, love is kind. And we're to the place in that passage where it says, love does not envy. And we wanted to talk about what that would mean to a writer. Who would like to start with talking about how we're defining envy for the purpose of this discussion?
Tina, that's you.
That's me? Okay. Well, I have this little book called The Emotion Thesaurus, and the definition that she has in her book, and I'm sorry, I'm horrible at remembering author names. I hope everyone remembers my name. Do as I say, not as I do. But they're great books, these emotion thesauruses. And her definition was resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, paired with a longing to enjoy that advantage.
Okay. So that is envy. And if you read the newsletter, I will just say what I said in the newsletter is that when I was little and I would hear green with envy, I always thought that meant the person was like after the person's money, because in my child's mind, I could not imagine what other reason there would be to be envious of anybody. And I thought, well, they must be hungry for the money and that's why they're green. But in reality, I think it's because like it makes you sick to be envious, doesn't it? It kind of will maybe even make you sick enough to turn your pallor a little bit green. And so we want to discuss the actual power of envy as a part of this episode. Rhonda, you look like you got something to add there. What's up?
Well, I was just going to say that if you're envying somebody, you're not happy at that moment. There's no way that you can be envious and content or happy at the same time.
And really, it's like a poison. So to wallow in your, I was watching this girl from Kentucky cook yesterday, and she said, waller in your envy.
Yeah.
Is she the one who put bacon grease on the lettuce?
Yes.
Like, oh, Tina, it's so delicious. If you never had hot bacon dressing,
Well, and she made gravy with bacon grease, and then she made cornbread with the lard, and then she fried potatoes in lard, and she like had this whole meal, and she was just a skinny little thing.
Yeah,
and I gained 5 pounds watching her. Now that is what I'm like. There's some envy for you.
There's some
like
envy.
A walking example. I wish I could eat all that and be a skinny little thing.
And you're saying that it can poison you, Tina. I think that's a very impactful choice of words that you used there. Did you care to dwell on that a little bit about how it can poison you?
Well, if you waller in it, sorry, I just had to say that word again. It's going to lead to sin. Just like any of those things that we dwell on in our heart and mind, instead of giving them, I mean, it's okay to feel something in the moment, but if you're going to let yourself wallow in it and dwell on it and let it poison you, then it leads to sin.
And I think that the reason is because when you're envious, you stop being grateful, and I think excuse me, disturbances like that kind of come from a place of fear. What, you don't have enough that you have to envy the other person. So that's my kind of 2 cents about that. Getting back to the outline that we have some listings of the power envy has. We just kind of said envy can do this and envy can do that. Rhonda, how about you read off that first one if you got your outline there?
Is it envy can compel you to accomplish your goals?
It is.
Right.
So we decided that we would say, well, envy isn't only always bad. Envy does have a power to initiate or provoke a change. And if you can be mindful of the feeling when you have it, and you can say, okay, I'm going to take this feeling of envy and change it into, well, what do I lack? And I'm going to go get it. Right. And so it can compel you down a path of actually making some gains.
Yes. Yeah. Because I don't believe that you can do anything about the initial envy. Like if you see something and you say, oh, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. But it's when you dwell on it and really say, well, how come they have it and I don't have it? Blah, 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 whatever. That's where you start to go wrong. But if you recognize the envy right away and then use it to your advantage, it can be a great tool.
Absolutely. Can springboard you into a direction of getting that thing that you were initially envious of. We got some interesting chat comments. Tina,
I just want to point out this one first.
Yeah.
Alex says she envies her brother being able to eat whatever he wants and still look like Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out to all the single ladies that Alex's brother looks like Chris Hemsworth. Like, I don't know if he's married or That's what I got from that comment.
And Alice added onto the end of it that it's also a judgment against yourself, Alex, because you're saying you're not good enough as you are. Very interesting. Now, Piper is associating it with the writer's career. She admits to having envy of writers who are successful when she is striving to reach that level of success when it's such an individual path. I have to align myself with my own purpose, which is to follow God's leading in both the writing and the marketing and the living, obviously. And if he brings success, awesome. Yes. Yes, yes. This is why I love our live chat. If you're listening to this after the fact, and you can possibly tune in at 10 a.m. Eastern, you should go to our YouTube channel and participate in this live chat, because there's so much good information always buried in there that we can't read every single comment live on
And I
air.
think you're going to go back later and read it also.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okie dokie. So, on the outline next, we have envy can propel you toward meaningful change, which is actually the second part of envy can compel you to accomplish your goals. Did you guys ever have a meaningful change come out of envy in your life at all?
Envy's not something that I struggle with. I've got lots of struggles, but that's just not one of them.
yeah.
I can't say for certain that envy has ever compelled me toward meaningful change. I wish that it would do that more than it would just cause me to say, well, how come that person and not me? And but I therefore don't complain, because because I feel like if I'm unwilling to take action to change where I'm at, then I don't have any right to complain. So my tendency is to just kind of bury that feeling of envy or not address it. So I would like to be better at using my envy to compel me into more healthy direction. So if anybody in the chat has an experience of envy compelling them to change, I'd love to hear about it. Bambina, did you have one, or are you going to pass on that?
I'm not really sure. Like, when I see somebody who's lost a lot of weight, that motivates me to that, I can do it too. But I wouldn't say it's coming from a place of envy, I don't think.
Unless they lost all of that weight eating bacon grease, then
and more.
Yeah. I think that if your go-to choice is to just love people, I think it's pretty hard for you to envy, because you see what they have and you want to be happy for them if you love them, instead of wanting it for yourself.
I love that, Rhonda.
I
yes.
agree.
If you find yourself prone to envy, then possibly you need to put a little love in your heart. Okay, that's.
Are you going to sing?
That is on my playlist on J.R. Nichols' Facebook page today for the Green Room music. I was singing it earlier. We do have other ways that envy is powerful listed in the outline. We have it written down. Envy can cause you to sin. And then we have 2 specific examples laid out there. So do we want to discuss them kind of all 3 together, or what, ladies? What do you think?
Well, I think it's important to talk about how they can destroy contentment and relationships, and that can segue into how we can use it in our books too. Because not only can envy destroy your contentment because you're not being content with what God gave you, and get in between you and relationships with others if you're feeling envious toward them, which and in that definition, the word resentment was in there. That can get in the way of relationships too. And that's something that we don't want in our lives, but we may want them in our characters' lives in order to create conflict in our books.
Ooh, that's a good segue. Do we want to pounce on the segue, Rhonda, or do you want to keep talking about envy in the writer's life before we get into in our writing?
I don't mind talking about it in the writing.
All righty. So we're going to switch now. We've talked about how the writer can struggle with envy or use envy to compel the writer to bigger and better heights. But what about in the writing? How is envy in your writing? Can envy improve writing? What do you say?
Well, how it could improve your writing is if you recognize the envy, instead of letting it eat you alive inside, let it compel you to either create better habits or better goals or something. Use it to improve yourself, not try to get what the other person has, because there's enough to go around for everybody.
Very true. Very true. It's interesting, Rhonda, because some of the Clubhouse rooms I've been in and some of the speakers I've been listening to have been talking about a creative mindset versus a competitive mindset. And when you look at all of the Queen Anne's lace, for example, that can fill up a field, when the seed blooms or sprouts up from the ground, the earth just makes room for it because it's a creation that is happening. And as you create, the world will make room for your creation. So there's no reason for you to envy somebody else's creation because there's room for yours as well. But if you've had this mindset that you're competing for resources or competing for anything, you're going to be very much hampering yourself and just really in a bad place inside. But that's not going to stop anybody else from creating, which is where you really want to be, is in that creative space. So I really appreciate your mindset here, Rhonda. You are someone to look up to in this regard.
And I think we should mention that the whole reason that we were thinking about this topic is because Jennifer saw a writer complaining that she had supported her friends in their successes, but felt like they were ignoring her successes. And so that and that kind of brought us around to this idea, well, love does not envy. And we looked at ourselves, and not that we want to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but we really are a good example of this because we love each other. And when Jennifer was the only one who had published, or I was the only one who hadn't published, or any of the myriad positions we found ourselves in between, we've always just felt like when the tide rises for one of us, it pulls us all up. And there's no reason for us to be envious of each other. We're like a kind of like a team together. And I think we should have that mindset for the entire writing community, because when an indie author publishes a book and is successful, that helps every other indie author.
Yep. And I'd like to comment too on our group and how supportive we are of each other, how important a writing group is, because you might be a loner, but I'm a loner. I like being by myself. I like writing by myself. I have a hard time focusing if I'm not by myself. But if I didn't have these ladies, I would be missing a giant chunk of support out of my life.
Agree. And just the accountability of it. I think if I didn't have people expecting me to show up, that it would be very easy for my writing to just fade away into nowhere. But because I do have a bunch of people in my life who are like writers, and that's the nature of our interaction, and I love those people, well, I feel like here I am in a writing group, I should be writing. So it kind of helps to feed that inside of me. Jason made a comment that really does help to switch the topic to in our actual writing. He says one of his villain's ways to push himself more is that he's jealous of the king that has continued to grow in power, especially since his character has always stayed at the same status or level of power. That makes a lot of sense, Jason. So the envy that your character has is compelling him to take actions, be they good or bad, correct? So envy sounds like possibly a very powerful tool in the writer's toolbox. Would you ladies agree?
Yeah, I have one of my stories that's a little farther down the queue where I've got two storylines going. I've got my main storyline, I've got a secondary. And the main storyline is someone dealing with envy, but she's going to overcome it at the end. But then the second storyline is going to be a tragedy because they are not going to overcome it. And it's been a little interesting to use some things that have maybe happened in my life from just my whole life, using it to see how it could have played out possibly in reality.
Everybody is waiting with bated breath to see how you write tragedy, Rhonda, because we know you don't like to do anything mean to your characters. So
yeah, it's an exercise. Yeah, definitely an exercise for me.
BB says, to paraphrase Joseph's statement, Joseph from the Bible, the devil may have meant envy for evil, but God can use it for good. If only we listen to his voice in our spiritual ear. I keep getting this message that what man means for evil, God can use for good. And it's just really impactful to hear that in any context, but we have to remember we don't see the big picture, right? And I guess our characters could be guilty of the same thing. What if, for example, in Jason's narrative, the king is acting the ways that he's acting to protect this actual character who's jealous of him? Wouldn't that be an amazing thing to discover at the end of the day, right? Just for fun. So Alex says, when the tide rises for all of us, it pulls us all up. It is so encouraging. Yes, Tina, that is a very encouraging phrase. Jason had a problem with envy when others were getting success as writers and his seemed small. Been there. And yeah, that's about all from the chat that I see there. Okay, so do we have anything more to talk about with how envy can impact your writing, ladies?
Well, I was just thinking, like, you could use it in your protagonist as a character flaw that they then overcome, creating a character arc. Or you could use it in the antagonist for their motivation, so why they're coming against your protagonist. Or you could use it to create conflict between characters. I think that in one of Jen's books, there was like a third girl, or not a third girl, but another girl involved with the guy that she liked. And she thought there was something going on when there wasn't, and there was some envy there, right? And that created a little conflict. It can also, if you're writing like crime drama, you could be the motivation of a crime. I mean, I could go on and on. Like, there's just so many ways that you can use it in your writing.
You could throw off. You could make someone look like the killer. Oh my word, Tina!
Oh, red
exploded
herring.
my brain.
Yeah, like a red herring. Like there's an envious person who makes them look really super guilty because they're so jealous. Green-eyed monster and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Tina, can I put you on the spot for a minute? Do you think that it's possible that some of the bad behavior in Lost, especially by the high priest guy, the dad, would be motivated by a little bit of envy that there are people living free under the gospel? Like, do you think it's possible, or do you think that's just a fun point to maybe discuss and maybe not?
Well, I guess it could have been if he had known about it. So maybe in the future.
Interesting. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so Piper's saying, Rhonda, make some notes before you forget.
How do you know me so well already?
All right. Well, we're at about the time in the podcast. Ooh, what really good sermon. Oh, Stephen Furtick gave a sermon about how we envy people for something without recognizing the cost of that thing. Oh, isn't that true? How many times have you heard, oh, these rich CEOs? And then it's like, have you even a brief blink of a clue of what it takes to become a CEO? So whatever, don't get me started, because that starts to be a little bit messy of a discussion. But, you know, people work really hard for a lot of the things that they have and for a lot of the writing achievements. It's really hard to figure out how to put a book up on Amazon, y'all. So when you're jealous that someone gets published, well, that person worked really hard and achieved a goal. And don't forget that they didn't just sit around and a blessing was dumped on them. That's not how it works, folks.
And a lot of those CEOs don't get to spend a lot of time with their families.
Yeah, there's always a price, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, so do we want to move on to the next portion of our podcast, or any last words about envy and the writer? All hearts clear? Okay, so we're going to move on to everybody's favorite portion of the podcast, which is the feeding of the backs. What's that? Well, when we would have our in-person writing groups, we would all read a piece of our writing and then give feedback on it. And then we would look at each other and say, is your back well fed? As a way to say, can we move on to the next person? And so we're going to give each other feedback. But in this instance, only positive feedback. Why? Well, because before the podcast, these pieces were written and not edited. And now we're going to read them to you. And so because they're raw and unedited, and we know that we're vulnerable with raw and unedited works, we only give positive feedback. In writing group, you might hear a little more critique out of us, but this is going to be positive feedback only. If you want to write the sprint yourself, please do so. Set the timer for 15 minutes and write what, Tina, is the prompt for people to write if they want to do the sprint?
I'm never getting out of this chair again.
Yes, so that is your sprint prompt. Set the timer for 15 minutes and see how you do. Then spread that manure around. Post it on your blog, post it on your social media, post it everywhere. And you, once a week, will have content on your social media and your blog, just like that. See how easy we make it for you. And always make sure to tag us so that we can read it, because we love to see what people come up with from our sprints. So without further ado, Bambina, what did you write this week?
Okay. Well, it's a little shorter than normal because my daughter called me right in the middle.
Okay.
And even when they're 33, they still sometimes need their mommy. So, and then it kind of threw me, right? So I'm not sure how well this turned out, but here we go. Christy finally sat down in the recliner, pulled the handle to put the footrest up, and closed her eyes. It had been a long day. Just getting up that morning had been a struggle. She'd lay in bed all night, thoughts racing through her mind. Wasn't it just like life to throw a wrench in her sleep plans on a school night? The kids hadn't wanted to get up either. It was only the second week of school and still felt like it should be summer break. Christy's little garden was at its peak, juicy red tomatoes ready to be picked, waiting for her daily when she went out to check them. It was still warm enough for barbecues and swimming in the lake. A black and orange butterfly had been fluttering near the flowers outside the bay window for a couple days now. It was the kind of thing that made you want to grab a tall glass of iced tea and lounge next to the water with a good book. That was not to be, however. It was a school day, and for Christy that meant it was a work day. Some days were easy. She would sit in her office and wait for a kid to need a Band-Aid or a few moments on the cot. But today had been an exception. Originally, she thought it was a bug going around that was sending so many kids to the nurse's office, but right about the time she ran out of emesis basins, it dawned on her that all the vomiting kids had one thing in common. They'd eaten the school breakfast that morning. Parents were called, hair was held, basins overflowed, the floor was mopped over and over. When it was finally over, Christy was feeling quite nauseous herself, though she hadn't even touched the school breakfast. Now, with the kids fed and watching TV, she was finally able to put her feet up, and she vowed to never get out of this chair again. "Mom, I don't feel so good," Patty, the 6-year-old, said, and promptly vomited into the white shag rug.
Oh, no, not the white shag.
Not the shag.
The end.
Oh,
Wow.
It was
That
very,
was
very
so
good.
full of description.
Yes. And very much framed nicely. I really like that she had this problem going on in her workplace, and then here it is brought home to her also.
Yes, I do not envy her.
I do not. No envy to be had in this situation. Although lots of green people. Just not
Yes,
green
I went with the
envy.
green, but not the envy.
Green eggs and ham, possibly. Piper says, "Oh no, yuck," but so sweetly written. That was awesome, Tina. And I agree. I'll never forget one time my kids had dumped, I think it was cornstarch or baby powder, all over like my couch. And just as I was going to wipe it with a rag, my friend was like, "Sweep it first." Vacuum first. And I was like, "Thank you for being on the phone with me right now, because I would have just made it all worse." And she's like, "It's dry." Anyway, I don't know what made me think of that. I guess because I was thinking of the sawdust that the janitors would put if you ever like vomited at school.
We had this stuff at the doctor's office. I worked at a pediatrician's office, and one time a kid puked on the scale, and that like felt kind of stuff that you step on and it has like ridges in it. Oh my gosh. And that's like the one body fluid that gets me. I can handle all the other body fluids, but not that one. And so this stuff, you just sprinkle it on there and it turns it into a powder, and then you just sweep it up.
That's great.
It's a miracle.
Very nice. Very nice. Shell says, "Good, Tina. Great build up and reveal." And Piper says, "Who on earth thought white shag rugs could be a smart decorator choice? Someone who's very optimistic."
Without children or animals. Or husbands.
I don't even want to own it when I don't have any of those things living with me. Do you know what I'm saying? Because, oh goodness, keeping it white would be the problem.
Yeah. Wouldn't last 10 minutes in my house.
Right. So, oh, Alex says, great work. Love the detail. I totally understand where Christy's coming from. I don't want to go back to work either. I teach. Yeah. She probably gets it more than any of us ever will. All right. I will read my sprint next, just so it's not so much me talky. And here we go. I'm never getting out of this chair again, Peter sighed as he reflected on the busy day he'd had. Mary stood, hands on hips, head tilted, apparently appraising his reclined position. Well, then I suppose you're not interested in helping me finally get the blinds hung out on the sun porch. Peter winced. Not really. This was a really physically demanding week at work. I'm not sure I can manage that level of activity even if I wanted to. And you don't want to, Mary rightly concluded with a cluck of her tongue. That's fine, I guess, but I don't want to hear an iota of complaining about the high cost of keeping the house cool when the bill comes this month. Agreed, Peter said, reaching for the television remote. His shirt pocket buzzed at just that moment, and he cursed as he looked at the name displayed. His boss, Carl Murtagh, was calling with what was certainly another crisis. It's in the ditch, Murtagh yelled as soon as Peter accepted the call, but before he'd even had a chance to say hello. What's in the ditch? Peter's brow furrowed. There was no telling what kind of shenanigans Carl had gotten up to on a Friday night. The Jeep! The Jeep is in the ditch! What Jeep? Peter's mind whirled to connect dots that seemed to float in the ether of his mind. Had the company acquired a new vehicle? No, this of course must be a personal matter. Did you buy your daughter a Jeep? Peter guessed, remembering some talk about the pressures Murtagh faced, having to support the whims of his 3 children on his millionaire budget. Peter scowled as he thought how nice it must be. He'd barely been able to afford the jalopy he'd awarded to his own daughter on the occasion of her high school graduation. No! Why would I do that? Don't you listen to me when I talk? The Jeep I borrowed from Don Hemmingsley. It's in the ditch. I need you to go get the truck with the winch and yank me out of here. Peter wanted to say, of course I listen to you, you arrogant son of a, but instead he said, yes, sir, and snapped the phone shut. Propelled by the adrenaline coursing through him, caused by the terrorizing yelling that had just come through the earpiece of his phone, Peter flicked the stick that would drop the legs on the recliner and sprung from his chair to retrieve his work boots. Mary re-entered the room and asked, where are you going? Crap, Peter thought. The blinds. I've got to go do something for Murtagh. You know how he is. Yes, I know how he is, Mary said, and that was all she said. She turned and walked back out to the sun porch. Peter knew what she wanted to say. Are they going to pay you some overtime for this adventure? Is this going to put you in line for a raise? And knowing she was holding back saying it made him even angrier somehow than her actually saying it would have done. I'm doing the best I can, he screamed as he slammed the back door behind him. Storming through the garage, he kicked at the rubber trash can that was in his way and yanked the door of his truck open with a satisfying jerk of the elbow. He fired up the old beast and said a silent prayer, as he always did, that the jalopy would make just one more trip to the office for him. His phone buzzed in his pocket and he cursed again, whipping it out of his shirt and screaming, "What now?" before even looking at the screen. I appreciate you, the text from Mary read, accompanied by a heart emoji. Peter slipped the phone back into his pocket and pressed a hand to his mouth, his elbow propped on the driver's side window. What, he wondered, was he doing? Where was this all going? Something was going to have to give. He just wished he knew what that would be. Lately, he'd been thinking it was his heart. Certainly, he couldn't withstand this sort of pressure for very much longer. It's all the expectations of me, he muttered. Everybody wants a piece of me. He rolled past the bum who frequented the intersection of Main and 2nd at just that moment. He praised himself silently for not flipping the guy off. Something was going to have to give. And that's all the time I had.
Wow. You write so much good. I don't know how you do it, but I look up to you. That was so full of description. Just the description of everything. Have you been specifically working under description lately?
No, I have not.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe that was in the last week.
Yeah, I do appreciate hearing that though, because like I do feel, I guess, yes, because I have planted a seed in my mind of I need to work on my description, but like not consciously doing that as I write, because of course during a sprint, I'm just trying to like listen to whatever the story is and write it down. Do you know what I mean? Or however that works. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I hear it, you know, and then I'm like transcribing it. I think because I'm audio I'm not
Mhm.
visual, so I don't see the words, I hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see the scene as you're writing it?
No, well, maybe. Yeah, I think so. Because I think I'm like, then this happens, but it's
Mhm.
like someone's telling me the story. It's not like
Mhm.
I'm watching a movie and I'm
Mhm.
transcribing.
Mhm.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think the process is a little bit different for everybody. Do you hear it or do you see words, Rhonda or Tina?
I see words.
You see words, Rhonda?
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
about you, Tina?
Both.
Both, yeah. Like I saw like the stick, and I think that's when I see is when the description happened. Because like handle, when I heard Tina call it a handle, I was like, that's the word I was looking for. I put stick,
Mm.
the stick that makes your legs go down on the recliner, because that's what it is, the stick on the side of your
Yeah.
chair. There's a button on my couch, but you got the old stick on the recliner.
Mhm.
So lots of chat. Thank you, everybody. I see. Oh, Alex, I love the struggle to support his children on the millionaire budget. Yeah, I didn't even realize I had that particular piece of envy in my sprint when we were talking about that earlier. Isn't that funny? And everybody's got some really nice praise for me. Such deep character work in such a short time. Really great emotional depth there, Jamie. Thank you, you guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks a million. Okay, so and Jason says he sees his writing like he's watching a movie in his head and he's just writing down what happened. So yeah, and Piper also sees pictures and is transcribing a movie.
I was gonna say, like, when it comes to prose, I see words, but when it comes to description, I see like almost like a still life in my mind, but it's moving. So I guess it's not a still life.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like, well, what does my character see? And then I imagine that I'm looking around through my character's eyes, a gray
Right.
wall
So
or
like it's
this or
both for
that.
me because it
Yeah.
depends on.
Yeah, so I guess I better not hem myself into a final answer there because it's a hybrid, I guess. All right. Rhonda, what do you have for us on I am never getting out of this chair again? You gave us a little bit of a hinty poo in your what's up. If everyone remembers, listen for the special thing.
Oh, you won't miss it. Okay. 184 words. Here we go. Okay. Will the pounding ever stop? Marissa sat back on her knees and inspected the sea of wood spreading before her. Only 2 more boards. At 16 feet, that's around 16 more screws. She closed her eyes to meditate on the thought of standing upright again, willing herself to levitate toward that pretty Adirondack chair over there, less than 15 feet away from her aching bones. Not yet, she scolded herself. Less than 40 screws and it'll be over, screamed her inner cheerleader, whom she named Jamie. But the chair is right there, Marissa screamed inwardly to her cheerleader. 20 minutes now is still 20 minutes later, right? But if you sit down now, you know you'll never get out of that chair again. Getup, Getup. Get up, cheerleader Jamie yelled in her best stadium voice. You can do it. The next cheer was stifled when Marissa poured the rest of her now hot ice water over her own neck. Fine. She emphasized her compliance with an extra long from her impact gun and then reached for another handful of screws. Man.
That was great.
Yeah.
I took a little too long figuring out how to spell, but that's it, I think.
It doesn't
That is
matter how
very,
you spell
very
it.
accurate.
Yes, this is meant to be read out loud, this piece right here. This is for sure.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Way to go. I love it. BB says, I have never had as many. Oh, Jamie. So anyway, the point, Rhonda, I loved that you made me your internal cheerleader, or like you just gave the name of Jamie.
No, it was totally you.
No, it was you.
You had little wings on and like this little halo sticking up from a wire on your head.
I totally heard Jamie's voice when you were reading what she said.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Rhonda, whatever it is that you do to keep yourself going when you have achy bones and joints, good for you, even if it's imagine a cheerleader in your mind. And Piper says it was awesome. Yes, Jamie the cheerleader. Isn't that funny? All right. So, Rhonda, what do you think is going to happen with this piece?
Well, actually, I would like to write a little story just starting from the time I purchased this house, because I just saw the house just went up for sale on July 1st, and I was the owner of it by July 16th. So
Wow.
I want to document everything, and things are going really fast. So this is going to be part of it.
I love that. Yeah.
Because when I'm out there, I do have cheerleader Jamie going. You know, this isn't writing, but
I just have this picture. And now listen, like I'm believing that your house is open to the public. Here's where the famous Rhonda Hagerman composed all of her. And so they come into the front and then there's a table with this book on it. And you open it's like, page 1, my first day in the house, and page whatever, we built the deck. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you have in mind, I'm guessing.
Well, kind of, except I don't think anybody's going to care until it's like my second great grandchildren and they find the journal. That's probably who's going to really care.
You should bury it in the cistern and see if anybody ever.
Jamie, that is such a good idea. Holy.
Yeah. Like
wow.
Why don't you just make a copy and bury the copy in the cistern?
There you go.
So you can at least keep one.
Oh, all right. That's a good idea.
Yeah, or bury part 2 in the cistern and then leave clues at the end of part 1.
Yeah, big cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Great ideas, guys.
Well, we have some praise for Rhonda's sprint. Such a fun story with a great inner struggle, says Shell. And Piper says that's such a fast turnaround, Rhonda. Yes. Way to let Jamie propel you to the finish line. Awesome. Okay, well, we don't have Jen to read her sprint. Hopefully she will do her sprint. Just like the rest of you, we're going to sprint, and y'all can catch up with that later. But because there's just the 3 of us, it's already time to move on to what's next. So what's next is where we go around and ask each other what's next with our writing career. Now, Tina, how do you feel about what's next? Because you're just really not sure what to do, or are you? What's going on with you?
I am, well, if all goes as planned, I'm going to go back to doing my writing on Monday. I just don't know what time of day that's going to be, whether I'm going to get up at 7 and do it first thing in the morning, or if it's going to be afternoon or evening. I just don't know that yet, but I do know what I'm going to do, because with all this stuff that suddenly we have this plate. If we have a plate and only so much can fit on your plate, right now, everything I was doing is like falling off the edges. And so one of the things that I decided is that trying to do my edits and writing book 3 at the same time is not working. And so I'm going to put book 3 away and get book 2 done, and then pull book 3 back out. So I know that's what I'm going to do. I know that when I go to work on my manuscript, it's going to be finishing the developmental edits and then getting the line edits done. So I know that. I just don't know what my schedule looks like when I'm doing it.
Now, do you have any kind of a deadline or any kind of a goal to finish your edits?
The only goal I have is to spend manuscript time daily, Monday through Thursday. Because I do not do well with long-term goals. I never follow through when they're too far down the road. I need daily pressure to get stuff done. So that's how I do it.
Okay. Yeah, I hear that. All right. So Piper has a what's next for. She's going to finish her blurb and get Stolen Secret uploaded. Ooh, Stolen Secret. What a good title. Uploaded to ensure everything goes well before it launches next week. And to that, Shell says, yay, Piper. Also, Piper's trying to figure out book 4 and whether she can wrap up the series with just one more book, which is what she hopes to do. I mean, I get it, because Piper and I have both talked about writing success and a writing career. And I know that Shell, like a Maria Johnson, who's on vacation this week. Oh, hi, Leah. Sorry, squirrel. But the fact of the matter is, a series is supposedly a really good way to propel yourself to author success. And so on the heels of that, Piper's little thing, can she finish up her series? I'll talk about my what's next. I've dug out book 3 from the Somerville saga. So Gigi Wagner is one of our listeners who told me that Second Chance, my first book in Somerville's saga, seems to be the book that she recommends to people where they come back to her and say, oh, that was so poignant and meaningful. And so it's just like, well, why not round out that series? I've got the roughs written. I just need to edit them and get them published. So I have book 3 of that series in my editing queue right now. The problem, it's not really a problem, but this thing is going to be really honking long compared to the others. Like the others, I don't even think they're 10,000 words. And right now this is at about 40,000. So it's actually shaping up to kind of be a novel, which I'm like, who cares? Because this actually was like the story that started the whole series. And the others were kind of built into this world. Not even this world. It's very convoluted. The point is, I don't care that it's longer than the others. I'm going to edit it and publish it. Too bad. And then I'm going to get started on book 4, in which Corny returns. Cornelius.
Yay!
But it's a funny book. So
Who gets high on Cheetos?
Yes. So the first book in this series is very serious. It's about a mother's love for her son and a second chance at raising him. And the second book is ridiculous. It's
hilarious.
It's about a raccoon disguised. He's an alien disguised as a raccoon. He can do sign language, whatever. But then the third book, the novel, I guess, is a romance. And then the final book is another ridiculous kind of caper. And then with this whole series, there's a short story that's about like another. So anyway, the whole thing is a weird, light sci-fi hybrid thing, but I don't care because it will be a series and it will be finished. And then I can say, read this one, read this one, read this one, and have a marketing plan that makes sense that I can follow, which will hopefully funnel more people into reading the other things that I've written. So all of those words just to say, my what's next is to get more serious about getting book 3 done. What's your what's next, Rhonda?
Mine is I'm sorry, I just got a text from my gutter guy. He's on the way out right now.
That's what's next. Your gutter guy's coming.
That's what's immediately next. So there's that. And then my daughter's 5th anniversary is today. So our family's going to be going out to celebrate. And so there's that. And then in my book, still formatting for Vella and hopefully getting that out. I don't know when they're going to be launching that. And then I've got an editing job that I'm hoping to get wrapped up by this weekend. And I got a whole bunch of miscellaneous things going on right now.
Yes, and you've been showing up for the office hours, so your habits are back in place, which I know makes you feel very happy.
Yes,
because we talk about how we're all differently wired, and for Rhonda, she really needs it to be like a structured. Here's my writing time. Here's my writing time. Here's my writing time, and the more times that you honor that, the better you feel about your writing career, right, Rhonda?
Much.
So you're in a really positive place right now because you've been showing up, right? So that's awesome. So I don't know who else is out there like that. Shell says her what's next, taking practical steps to self-pub her short story. Yay! Working on cover and formatting. Yay for you, Shell. Jason says he plans on working on his descriptions next. He's not sure how to start, but he wants to work on getting his description to pull the readers into the story also. Always good to be looking at craft, Jason, I would say.
Shell mentioned that she started formatting. I'm curious what program she decided to use for that.
Yeah, because she was asking us, what do we use? So there's some cheering for Shell in the chat. Leah says she's glad to catch us because she slept in. Insomnia, man, it seems to be plaguing people that I know lately.
I've almost missed her own podcast from sleeping in.
Yeah, she says it gets to be a boring tale. Yeah, she mentioned insomnia is a boring tale, and all I saw was boring tale. I'm like, Leah's writing a boring tale? What?
I doubt it.
I want to write a story and call it that.
Insomnia is a boring tale?
No, just a boring tale.
It could be about hole drilling.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, boring.
That would in many ways.
Carpenter ants.
Or you could spell tail, Tail.
There you go, like an American tail.
Oh, it could be an opossum with a tail that drills holes.
Oh my God.
All right, I'm dropping that one.
Oh boy.
I think we probably should.
All right. Yeah. And so I guess that is all that we have for this week. We've covered everything, correct, ladies? Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Just that I'm really happy that Jennifer's going to be back next week.
We always miss her because she usually makes the magic happen. Many thanks to Tina, who is our web person today in Jen's stead. And we will all, I guess, be finished for now, right, Rhonda? Right, Tina? Okay, so this concludes the Christian Indie Writers Podcast for this week. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.